What is the decision that would define you if your world ended in 60 seconds? Not the decision you think you would make with time to reflect and consult your moral compass. I mean the one your instinct would scream to make at the exact moment the ground vanished beneath your feet. If a doctor looked you in the eye and gave you an expiration date, if the safety of the person you love most hung by a thread, who would take control inside you? The you everyone knows, or a version of you that even you did not know existed? As uncomfortable as it is, that question is the starting point for one of the sharpest lessons on the psychology of influence in fiction. Breaking Bad gives us a perfect laboratory to understand how the mind works under extreme pressure. We are not here as fans. We are using the show as a map. Walter White becomes a powerful mirror that reflects the architecture of our own critical decisions. He is our case study to decode how an ordinary man, apparently without persuasive power, turns into a dominant force and a master of engineered influence. Think about life before the crisis, the routine, the feeling of being just one more in the crowd, of a huge dormant potential while the days repeat themselves. Have you felt that dissonance, that sense you are capable of much more, but circumstances keep you trapped in a script you did not write? Breaking Bad's brilliance is to take that universal feeling and inject a brutal catalyst into it, an inescapable crisis. The cancer diagnosis functions as the perfect psychological trigger. That is where our analysis begins. Faced with death and imminent financial ruin, the human brain does not operate as usual. Forget slow, rational reasoning. What happens is a cognitive hijack. The logical planning part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, goes on standby. The oldest, most primitive defense system takes the cockpit. It is survival mode in its purest form, where morality becomes a luxury and social rules lose meaning. The only focus is to regain control at any cost. On that chaotic mental terrain, the first seed of influence is planted. Walter White's transformation is not driven by a desire to become a criminal. It is driven by a refusal to be a victim. What you are about to see may surprise you, because the decision to produce something illegal was never truly about money. That is only the conscious justification, the story we tell ourselves to make sense of unthinkable acts. Underneath pulses a much rawer, more human drive. Stay with me to the end, because we are going to dissect that key moment. We will see how a cornered mind does not merely seek a way out. It seeks dominion. The first drastic choice under extreme pressure is rarely about the immediate problem. It is a declaration of power against a life that felt powerless. It is the first step in rewriting the script, using the most dangerous and effective tools of strategic influence. And that need to flip the game and take the reins when life seems to rip control away is one of the most universal human experiences. We all face our own diagnoses, moments that force us to look inward and decide whether we will be passengers or pilots of our journey. That is why this conversation goes beyond analysis. It is a space to understand the forces that move us. Your participation turns this from a monologue into a dialogue. If this reflection on pressure, control, and the triggers that transform us resonated with you, pause for a second and tell me in the comments what hit closest to home in your own life. It does not have to be a long story. Sometimes a single word creates a powerful connection. Reading what you share gives me clarity on what truly matters here. If this is making sense and this psychological analysis is lighting up new angles, your like is more than a click. It is a signal from the other side of the screen that we are in sync, a nod that says, "Keep going, this matters." That feedback shows me the path. Your participation is the fuel that helps this channel grow and lets me invest more time in deep content that reaches more people who want to understand themselves and the world more strategically. If this feels like your place, if unraveling the mind's engineering and the psychology behind our decisions fascinates you, consider subscribing so we can keep going together. Think of it as a mutual commitment to go beyond the obvious. You will not lose the thread because what comes next is the next critical piece of this puzzle. Now that we are aligned, let's return to that crucial moment. The first time Walter White decides to cook. Hidden in that initial act is one of persuasion's most powerful and treacherous principles, a force that once activated drags us forward almost against our will. It is the commitment and consistency trigger. How many times have you started something small, a diet, a project, a promise to yourself, and felt an inner force compelling you to continue just so you would not be inconsistent with that first choice? It is one of the most subtle and powerful forces governing our mindset. We hate saying one thing and doing another. Walter White's story exploits that mechanism brilliantly. The first time he cooks is not an isolated act, it is the signature on an invisible contract with himself. With that first step, however desperate, he planted a flag. From that point on, every new decision would be measured against that first one. To backtrack would be to admit error and confront the immorality of the initial act. Our brain hates that. It is far easier to keep going, reinforcing the original choice with new actions that justify it. That is the hidden truth behind many large transformations, for better or worse. The 1,000-mile journey really begins with a single step, but it is the commitment to that step that defines the entire path. The impact of that first decision goes far beyond the act itself. It sets off a domino effect in our psychology. For Walter, each lie to cover it, each dirty dollar accepted, each rule broken became easier. Why? Because he was no longer the chemistry teacher who would never do this. He already had. He was now the man who, for his family, could cook meth. See the identity shift. Each subsequent action was a desperate attempt to stay coherent with the new and dangerous self-image he had created. The big reveal is that our beliefs do not always guide our actions. Very often our actions reshape and redefine our beliefs to avoid mental collapse. It is a defense mechanism, a way to stay sane when our decisions pull us far from who we thought we were. That forced coherence is the foundation for building a new self. If this hit home, drop in the comments. The first decision defines, and that is where the story gets more complex. To sustain such extreme coherence, the identity of a simple teacher was no longer enough. Something or someone new had to be created. Here the transformation delivers one of the mind's most fascinating revelations. He does not just create a pseudonym, he manifests a full alter ego, Heisenberg. This is not a mere name swap, it is psychological engineering. Heisenberg is a tool, a shield to protect Walter White's psyche from the impact of his own choices. Think of it as dissociation. The good family man is not committing crimes. The shadowy, calculating figure in the black hat is. That separation lets him operate in a world of violence and immorality without shattering Walter White's original identity. That mask unlocks his power. It gives him permission to access parts of himself that were always repressed: ambition, arrogance, anger, and, above all, the need to be recognized. Walter was weak and invisible. Heisenberg is powerful and feared. That duality becomes the engine of his rise. Decisions Walter could never make, paralyzed by ethics and fear, Heisenberg executes with surgical coldness. The hidden truth is that Heisenberg was always there, sleeping. The cancer crisis did not create him out of nothing. It gave him the perfect excuse to unleash him. This strategy of creating an avatar to handle life's challenges is not exclusive to fiction. We all wear different masks in different contexts: professional, family, social. Versions of us that help us navigate complex relationships. Walter's journey shows both the power and danger of that tool. Heisenberg is the personification of his shadow, the archetype of everything he repressed. By giving that shadow a name and face, he can not only interact with it, but use it as his primary weapon of influence and power. The impact on his mindset is total. He stops thinking like the victim of a disease and starts thinking like the architect of an empire. If the idea of duality resonated, comment, "We all have a shadow." But what happens when the mask refuses to come off? When the shadow created to serve a purpose tastes power and refuses to return to the dark? This is where Walter White enters his most dangerous phase. The answer lies in one of influence's strongest pillars: authority. For Heisenberg to survive and dominate, he must stop being just a mask and become a recognized and respected entity. Others must believe in his power as much as, or more than, he does. Here is the hidden truth of power. Authority does not need to be official, it needs to be perceived. Walter grasps this and uses it to build his empire. Heisenberg's image, reputation, and bearing become lethal weapons. Think of the iconic "Say My Name." That is not a request, it is a command. It is the climax of his shift from reactive man to proactive force. In that moment, he is not selling a product, he is selling a legend. He forces rivals to verbalize the power he built, not with an army but with bold decisions and a relentless reputation that precedes him. The black hat, the cold stare, the unnerving calm are curated symbols projecting unquestionable authority. The psychological impact of perceived authority is overwhelming. We are conditioned from childhood to obey authority. We trust doctors, follow experts, respect uniforms. Heisenberg hacks that system. He dresses in the symbols of his brand of power and acts with the certainty of someone who will not take no for an answer. The result is that people comply without question. The fear he inspires is not only from violence but from the certainty he projects. He creates a field of reality where his word is law and the cost of defiance is too high. That dominion mindset changes everything for him. Once his word becomes law and others bow to his reputation, the next step is subtler. It is to make people not only obey, but want to do what he wants, believing the idea was theirs. Walter transcends fear-based authority and enters mastery of manipulation. Brute force gives way to a psychological game. His real genius is not lab chemistry, but human chemistry. And his prime case study, his greatest victim and creation, is Jesse Pinkman. Their relationship is a masterclass in dark, effective persuasion. Walter spins a web around Jesse by using reciprocity in a distorted way. He creates the problem and then presents himself as the sole savior. He pushes Jesse into danger and then rescues him, creating a heavy debt of gratitude. Every favor, every time Walter protects him, is not charity. It is an investment. He builds a cycle of emotional dependence where Jesse feels perpetually indebted, locked into a toxic loyalty to a man who is both mentor and destroyer. The hidden truth is that the most efficient manipulation often looks like care and protection, making it almost impossible for the victim to see the chains. He does not stop there. Walter mixes that with cognitive dissonance. He forces people around him, like Jesse and even Skylar, to participate in his actions. Once complicit, their minds go to war. To ease that inner pain, the easiest path is to change belief to justify the action. They accept Walter's narrative and believe there was no other way, because the alternative, admitting the monstrosity, is psychologically unbearable. The result is devastating. Their own minds become prisons. He no longer has to force them. Their mindset does the dirty work. The backstage reveal is that his control is not about orders. It is about reconfiguring others' reality. If you saw the depth of this mental game, comment, "Influence is in the details." But controlling people is only half of dominion. Absolute power appears when, besides controlling will, you become the master of the one thing everyone most desires. Here we reach the apex of Walter's persuasion, scarcity. As a chemistry genius, he understands that value lies not only in quality, but in rarity and exclusivity. The blue meth is his masterstroke. It is not just higher purity. The blue color is branding, an unmistakable signature. He does not create a better product. He creates an entire category where he is the only player. This flips the power dynamic. He no longer seeks customers. Customers and distributors seek him, desperate to access the only product that matters. That differentiation crushes competition and grants him a monopoly not only over the market, but over desire. The hidden truth is that from this point on, it is not about the drug, it is about being the only one. When you are the sole source of what everyone wants, you have no rivals. You set the rules, you hold absolute control. It is the embodiment of his line, "I am not in danger, I am the danger." It is not a statement of violence, it is market position. He has become the scarce resource. Scarcity has a powerful direct impact on mindset. Our brains give greater value to what is limited or might be lost. The possibility of missing out triggers urgency and heightens desire while shrinking rational judgment. Walter exploits this perfectly. By controlling the supply of his unique product, he inflates not only price but the perceived value of his persona. He becomes the legend, the myth, the only man who can deliver that quality. The key revelation is that supreme power is not having the best product, it is having the product no one else can make. If you understand the power of exclusivity, comment. Value is in scarcity. Eliminate all external rivals and reach the summit. and you are left with solitude and overconfidence. At that altitude, the greatest enemy is no longer outside. The tragic irony is that the very psychological tools that raised Walter become the architects of his fall. Commitment turns to stubbornness, authority turns to tyranny, self-confidence turns to blind arrogance. At the height of his empire, he commits critical mistakes the old, meticulous Walter never would. These are not minor slips. They are symptoms of a psychological disease success often feeds: hubris. He reaches a point where he believes he is untouchable, smarter than everyone. His ego, inflated by consecutive wins, creates a massive blind spot. He stops seeing imminent risks, underestimates opponents, and most dangerously, overestimates his invincibility. The hidden truth is that his journey's goal quietly shifts. It stops being about securing his family's future and becomes about feeding Heisenberg's legacy. He falls in love with his myth, and that love blinds him to the vulnerability of every empire. Power becomes his addiction. Arrogance is the fatal weak point. Psychologically, that is overconfidence bias. After long streaks of success, we start to believe we are infallible. We trust intuition over facts, ignore warning signs, and take bigger risks, convinced results will stay positive. For Walter, the impact is catastrophic. He confronts Hank, leaves crucial clues, acts on impulse and emotion. Decisions once calculated become reactive and egocentric. He becomes his own enemy and plants the seeds of his destruction within his success. If you have reflected on how success can blind, comment: ego is the enemy. When an empire's architecture rests on arrogance, a single loose thread pulled by the inner enemy can bring it all down. Heisenberg's collapse is exactly that, an inevitable chain reaction triggered by his own decisions. The web of lies and manipulation that looked robust and infallible reveals itself a fragile house of cards. Every deception, every life he damaged, every moral shortcut returns with a bill. The consequences of choices made under early crisis pressure finally catch him with overwhelming force. The fall exposes a hard truth about power. Influence built on fear, manipulation, and negativity is by definition unsustainable. It demands constant energy. You must watch, threaten, control, because it does not generate loyalty. It breeds resentment. It is a system that devours itself and eventually cannibalizes its creator. The bonds he broke, the people he used, and the family he vowed to protect become the forces that accelerate his end. The ultimate impact is not glory, but desolation and the loss of everything. The backstage lesson is harsher still. When the dust settles and money becomes useless, it does not matter how powerful, feared, or rich Heisenberg was. The person left to face the ruins, the loneliness, and the weight of every destroyed life is Walter White. The man he tried to erase, the frightened chemistry teacher, is the one who pays the final bill. That is brutal. We cannot run from who we are, no matter how many masks we wear or how much power we accumulate. Consequences are tied to our essence, not to the character we created for the world. Heisenberg's legacy was a trail of pain, and the one who felt it most was Walter himself. If you understand that every action has a reaction, comment: the bill always comes. The beauty of a tragedy is not just watching the fall. It is extracting the lessons that keep us from repeating it. Let's pull this from fiction into your life, because Walter White's story is a manual of what to do, and mostly what not to do. 3 keys, 3 mindset codes can radically change your decisions from today on. Key 1. Know your triggers. Walter's descent began with a decision made under extreme pressure, with fear and despair in control. How do you react when cornered, impulsive, frozen, aggressive? Knowing your patterns in crisis is the first step to self-command. It prevents permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. It is your first strategic defense line. Key 2. Build authority, not tyranny. Fear built Heisenberg's empire, and fear made it fragile. Enduring influence is not the fear you impose, but the value you deliver. Build your authority on competence, integrity, and the trust people place in you. Be the person whose opinion is respected, not because others fear disagreement, but because your words carry weight and wisdom. That creates a positive legacy. Key 3. Beware of blind consistency. Remember commitment and consistency that traps us in past choices. Wisdom is not only the courage to start, but the humility to recalculate. Do not become a prisoner of old decisions. Investing time and energy in a path does not mean you must follow it to the end if it proves destructive. Knowing when to pivot, admit error, and change direction is not weakness. It is high-level strategic intelligence. If you will apply at least one key, comment, "My journey, my rules." Because in the end, all principles, triggers, and strategies boil down to one power entirely in your hands. The power of choice. Walter White's journey shows how each decision, small or large, builds the architecture of our reality. The ability to influence, persuade, and decide under pressure can build empires or dig our own ruin. The difference is the awareness behind the choice. If you made it here, you are seeking that awareness. If this deep dive into the human mind and the strategies behind our decisions is the kind of content that moves you and makes you think, consider subscribing to be part of this community. That is how we continue this journey together, always pushing beyond the superficial. If this analysis brought you a valuable insight or gave you a new angle, your like is the best way to let me know this connection was real and mutual. To show me you followed each step from the crisis trigger to this conclusion, leave a comment that says, "This journey was for me." Seeing that comment from those who stay to the end means a lot to me. Our minds do not stop, and neither does our conversation. There is a video on the screen that perfectly complements what we discussed today. Click it, and we will meet in seconds to go even deeper.